to see me close up, Eileen, while we wait just a few minutes to get started on our event with Laura, Elle, and Scott. So you're in the right place. Don't go anywhere. Laura's waving at you right now. So just go to the bathroom or get your drink of water, whatever you need right now. We're going to get underway in just a few minutes. Thanks. That's what I always tell authors when we're doing it at home. It's like, okay, you have 30 seconds.
Right. Cough. Well, when you do things, when you do classes in the things on Zoom, kids come in. If they don't come in right on the dot, they're not coming. Right? And they never come in.
Well, did you say you had to park all the way down the street?
Yeah. So I just put quarters in because it wouldn't take my card either. So I don't know what it was.
We only have to pay for it.
Yeah.
She'll talk fast.
Yeah. I've got my little notes in my little notebook.
Jeremiah's going to do a little introduction for you when we're ready.
Let me know when we're ready. I'm ready.
And sorry, did you even meet? Did I introduce you to Sam?
Sam?
Oh, yes, I said hello to you. I don't think we got a full introduction.
And Jeremiah, who will be
So
doing
excited to
your
have you. And you brought goodies, our
Yes,
favorite things.
There you go.
Unless there are too many people. No, we'll see.
What I want to do is go in and take a grouping of these pens because you have to buy a whole bunch of ones.
Oh,
And put it in on the Greg's desk. Put it right in his little.
It's just kind of like, don't even let him know that it's there. And then
He
all of a sudden,
accidentally hands it out. Oh, yeah.
I'm ready
I'm
whenever.
like,
okay.
It's not fun. Just wait for the go ahead.
that was very weird.
Are they hiring?
My mom.
Yeah, I was asking Art, I said, oh, what do you think I was doing? I said, well, you know, we talk about all the positions that are opening up at the university.
Yeah, see if that's the burner phone or something.
What is that? Probably better.
All right, you ready?
I am ready.
Jeremiah's going to give you an awesome introduction.
I'm not going to read very quickly. I'm going to read it in normal speed.
All right.
Like normal people. I'm going to project. All right. Welcome and thank you for coming out to Welcome and thank you for coming out to welcome back a long-time OMG friend, Laura, Ellen Scott. We're here to celebrate Laura's latest book, Blue Billy, the third book in the New Royal Mysteries. The series is set in the fictional college/prison town in Ohio, where the university has partnered with the corrections industry to offer a uniquely resourced crime writing program. In Blue Billy, three women come together to try and uncover the truth behind the New Royal's darkest mystery, the legend of Blue Billy himself. Born and raised in northern Ohio, Laura was named after the classic Nora film and song, Laura, which is why she's writing stories with dark themes and quirky characters, in the tradition of Tom Robbins, Kelly Link, and Robert Altman. Laura teaches creative writing at George Mason University. Most weekends, you can find her hiding from the Mothman in her cabin in West Virginia.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's just
And there's a bunch of people online, so from them,
all right.
thank you. And Artera said they're watching it on YouTube and Facebook, so they've got you in stereo.
Oh, fantastic. When I start reading, you may want to send Dashel out of the room for it. But thank you guys for attending this event. I know it's been an incredibly rough couple of days, and we're all grappling with a variety of emotions, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to come here or to tune into this event and help me celebrate this book. And I'm especially thankful to One More Page Books for hosting me yet again. They've been so incredibly supportive throughout my entire noveling career. They've been very supportive, and it's really great to be in a space like this at a time like this, right? Because we know, you know, and I know that the love of books makes a huge difference in everyone's lives, right? A long time ago, I was teaching a fiction writing class, 398, which apparently we have somebody who's registered for that for next semester. Teaching 398, which is fiction writing, and my class met the morning after a major national disaster, or was supposed to meet, and I was walking through the hallways, and I saw that all the classrooms were dark. Nobody was in the classroom that morning. When I got to my classroom, it was full. Everybody was there, and they were ready to get to work on what they were going to do that day. And I actually was stunned, and I said, why are you guys here? And one of my students said, this is what we do. All right, now that is the privilege, emotional privilege of a young person. But I'm going to take that right now. I'm going to work with that right now. I'm going to sort of swipe that and sort of count my blessings and think about all the things that we really have and hold them close and treasure them. And One More Page Books is one of those things. Right? So for those of you who don't know me, and I'm guessing you guys mostly do, but for those of you who don't know me, I teach George Mason. I've been writing fiction a long time. I sort of started out the way a lot of people do, writing traditional short fiction, and then moved into writing flash fiction. And it wasn't until that point when I actually started getting some attention, basically. Colleen and I were in a lot of the same classes, that sort of thing, and we know each other's work very well from those beginnings to now. We're really pleased to see you here for that reason, and others, obviously. But yeah, moving into flash fiction was an eye-opener for me because that was not the sort of thing that we were trained in our classes. But it happened to be the next big thing. That combined with publishing online, and that's where I sort of started getting some more attention for the work I was doing and sort of the moods that I was trying to create. To the extent that, Dorothy Allison reached out to me just out of the blue and wrote me an email about my work, things like that. And it was when I was getting some of those kinds of contacts, and I also got Al Young picked up a story for an issue of Plowshares. Remember that sort of chasing down madness thing where somebody said it was the Ambassador Young was looking for me or something like that from the front office. No, it's Al Young the poet. He's looking for me. Where we had him as a visiting writer, and he read a story of mine that was about nothing. And he started that class by talking about you have to write about something. And he talked a long time about how important it was to write about something. And we were all around that table. And my manuscript was on the top. And we were all like sort of sinking down because we knew that I was going to get beaten up. Because that was my position in classes, was to get beaten up by the professor, basically. And then he said, yeah, you have to write about something, but I'll tell you what, this is a story about nothing, and I really liked it. And that's the story he picked up for Plowshares. And those kinds of weird, sort of lucky moments in my writing life that I'm always sort of like on the lookout for, but I could never expect or anticipate. And now here I am tonight celebrating my 5th novel publication, and I'm really, really happy about that. So these books, the books that I'm going to talk about tonight, and especially Blue Billy, are the 3 books in the New Royal Mystery series, beginning with Mean Bone in Her Body, Crybaby Lane, and then tonight's book, Blue Billy. As the introduction so beautifully described, this is set in a college prison town in Ohio, which is sort of an amalgam of a lot of places that I lived when I was young and as an adult in northern Ohio and also in southern Ohio. I would probably say this is really a mashup of sort of Kent, Ohio, and maybe Athens, Ohio, all those different parts there coming together, where, yes, colleges are extremely important to life there, but there's also quite a few correctional institutions nearby, as well as mental health institutions. And those are all places that I got to know, maybe not as intimately as others, but I got to know because of family members and me being obsessed with the university and things like that as a very small kid, and having a lot of exposure to those institutions. And I know I've talked about that before. When it came around to wanting to write a mystery, I thought, well, I've always been averse to sort of writing what you know all the time because I always felt like that was sort of indulgent in a sense. But then when I wanted to go really dig in and write about a mystery and write a series of books that were set in the same place, I realized that I wanted to write about all those sort of Gothic elements growing up in Ohio and trying to sort of create a mood there. And maybe even transform someone's notion of Ohio, if that's even possible, I'm not sure. If you know anything about Ohio, you'll know that we've got a lot of gray skies there. Right? We've got a lot of corn, and we've got a lot of interesting people passing through, and we were kind of a locus in the 70s and 80s for serial killers passing through, and that's sort of what Billy is Obviously, Silence of the Lambs was a big deal. There were scenes in Silence of the Lambs that were taken from Ohio landscapes, like Belpre, Ohio, things like that. So it was really not just on the periphery as like a monster, but a little bit closer to your everyday thinking. Anyway, so the first book, Beanboom, is about a town that takes advantage of its proximity to corrections, where the college takes advantage of its proximity to corrections institutions to sort of partner and come up with this crime writing program. And this, again, is something that I'm dipping into because I work in a creative writing program at George Mason, and 10 years ago, we launched a BFA in creative writing that sort of mirrors some of the most successful elements of our MFA in creative writing. And most people received that really well. But then once in a while, you'd hear from somebody that, who was a little bit more suspicious of what our intentions were, what our motivations were. And that knocked me off my guard. I thought, that's interesting. There's people who would look at a creative writing program and it's kind of a negative light, like we're trying to get away with something. And so that's really what started me thinking about, well, what if we thought about it as a crime writing program? Wouldn't that be fun to have? That would really be a cash grab, wouldn't it, just to do that? And then that's when I started then bringing in all the things that I knew and experienced about working in a big program like this. And so there are a lot of things that I write about in these books that is definitely writing what I know, but it's also, but it's not necessarily followed line of like straight up memoir or something like that. It really is using those elements of my daily life, which is pretty boring because I do a lot of administrative stuff, right? But trying to bring the glamour back to administration, I think that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so the first
That's where
book,
the fiction part comes
yeah,
in,
that's
right?
really it. It really is. So the first book is about a very egotistical and not very nice historical writing professor who takes advantage of mentally ill students' original work about a murder that occurred in New Royal. And it's about their relationship and how difficult that is. I actually like that main character. Everybody else hates the main character. But I like Murgatroyd in this book. The second, and so it is more about bonds. It's more about mother-daughter relationships or mother-daughter-like relationships, right? The second book, Crybaby Lane, sort of expands out and tries to talk about a little bit of the history of New Royal, going all the way back to sort of Revolutionary War roots, in a sense. And for this book, I used a lot of documentation and journals and things like that from my own family, and also used a lot of family names. My family came in very, very early, and so there's a lot of really fun names there. And I was talking to my publicist the other day, and he said, well, where did you get all these weird names like Viola Horum? And I think, dude, your name is elegant. But a lot of really great family names that really can inspire you and work with them. And the only thing possibly confusing to my relatives who read the book because they wanted to pin these names to actual people, but that's not the case. I just really love all those names, and that continues on. Now, in Bluebilly, I'm thinking, okay, this is book 3. I want to put some kind of pin in it. Why not write a serial killer book? Because nobody needs another serial killer book, right? That's really the basic there. But I thought, well, I really might as well own up to what my fascination is with these dark stories, the kinds of things that I was really thinking myself to be an expert on, And so as I was starting to develop this work, right at the beginning parts of thinking this through, is when we started getting the news about the successes of forensic genealogy, right? For investigation and tracing people back and working with unsolved crimes. And that, on one hand, I'm thinking, oh, shoot, you can't write these books anymore. But on the other hand, I thought, wait a second, what about writing about a guy who's possibly running scared from this? Maybe somebody who has finished his so-called career and he's running scared from it. And then it sort of evolved to be a kind of character who law enforcement decides doesn't exist. He's even though they have evidence of a lot of crimes they've attributed to this entity. So taking this last serial killer and giving him a kind of legendary status and name, and then having him be part of the corrupt history of New Royal, Ohio as well. So let me do a little bit of reading from chapter 1, and then I'll talk a little bit more, and then I'll do a little bit of reading from another part. Okay? All right. So this is sort of the very beginning here. And most of it takes place in 1984. And guess what? I'm not wearing my reader. Pardon me. I bought a separate set of reading glasses. They look exactly like my normal glasses, so I never know which ones I'm wearing until I actually walk into a wall. All right. So thank you for your indulgence. Let me stand up. So most of this takes place in 1984. This moon is enough. In the summer, there will be bigger moons, but this early spring night is still bright, thanks to what Galileo called an imperfect heavenly body. Its light filters down through the trees not fully leafed out, and peepers scream from a nearby pond. Old coke ovens, dozens of them, line both sides of a soggy valley of weeds and leaves. They resemble the cells of a hornet's nest, and that's exciting in unexpected ways. So many to choose, so many to be chosen. Rows of doors and a dark dream. A hard, sharp memory of his father comes. His father with the trawl and the bucket. A thrill runs through him again, unleashing energy from his gut to his nerves, turning him into a cold, glowing star. It is wonderful to finally grab hold of the through line of one's life. Wonderful to recognize one's purpose. The ovens, dead wounds of industry, have been overtaken by nature, reclaimed under dirt and ivy. Some are collapsed, pierced, bound by ash roots. Some are inhabited by the desperate, the mad, the lost. He senses their bodies, hidden in the shadows of their brick-lined berths, crawling forward to watch him pass through their unofficial town. Though the ovens are cold, the earth still likes to cook. Each step releases a sharp odor. He breathes it in, the residue of a time when yellow soot choked the moon. Instinct, shine your light. And there, under a gap of the leaves, is a moonlit sliver of bricks curving like a dancer. That's the one. He climbs a soft rise of wet weeds to reach the oven. Its mouth offers unpenetrated darkness and a different kind of cold. He grips the arched opening. The cold hums and breathes. What follows? A sigh and the flowing scent of sweet, filthy humanity. Men sigh when they're alone. Women sigh when they aren't. Come on then, she says, way back in there. He makes his way in the darkness until the darkness gives up. The woman has a pallet, some rags and cigarettes, her needles, a little home where light could never reach her. It's a trap, but for whom? That will be determined soon. The revolution will be televised, he says, but the apocalypse will be privatized. Sounds good, she says, and laughs the sweetest, sexiest laugh. There must be a name for the blood and bones left behind. The press settles on Dalia Black, her chosen name rather than the one she was born with, Jennifer Moses. Then the label for dead girls is always linked to their sins. The sins that lead irrevocably, as if choice and chance were illusions, to physical destruction. So the options are runaway, drug addict, hitchhiker, protester, stripper, hooker, or student, or more specifically, co-ed. In Dalia's case, the news likes to call her a punk rock singer, even though that was only true 2 nights a month at best. If she were still alive and in charge of her own eternal identity, she would probably call herself a seeker of angels. Why? Because in the 80s, hippies are over, but the world still needs a few diehards. Dalia's friends will tell you she was, the most positive punk they ever met. The word for it is energy. She had great energy. Partying, singing, fucking. She's the free spirit who can stay up all night, consume any drug she wants, and still take a morning shift if she's needed at the diner. And when Dalia isn't all that, she lays low. Her downtime is private. Sometimes she's gone for weeks. Her friends are used to her disappearances. She's like a cat. And she always comes back, maybe with a new scar or two, but renewed and ready to rock. This time she comes back dead, and not plain dead either. She's on the list, as she was fond to say, doormen and ticket takers. Dalia Black is on a new kind of list, the growing list of dead runaways, drug addicts, hitchhikers, protesters, strippers, hookers, poor co-eds who, through every fault of their own, created their own fates. That's the popular opinion anyway. R.I.P. Dalia Black, seeker of angels. Perhaps her sin was thinking that angels are good for you. The scene is taped off, but the body has yet to be lifted from the dumpster, where the morning cook found it at the end of his shift. He chased off the crows and noticed the padlock was broken. Then he saw her inside. Then the cook calmly called the police, gave his statement, and quit his job. The day is windy, so no big deal to the tight-buttoned officers in uniforms. But Detective Jason Cutler has to hold on to his hat. Eventually, he tosses it onto the back of his car and allows the breeze to whip his carefully hot coke hair around. His partner, Bob Kelso, is a little bit younger and a lot less vain, and sometimes his brand of athleticism gets on Cutler's nerves. Cutler's strong, but he's not lithe like Bob. Bob drops to a squat and starts examining the gravel, as comfortable as he can be. The L&K restaurant sits on a large lot next to the 8-lane highway. Across the highway is a low, sprawling complex anchored by towers. It's far enough away that the surrounding fence is almost invisible, blending into the general institutional palette. The complex is NRCCI, the New Royal County Correctional Institute, which Cutler hopes is not meaningful. He's just finished talking to the restaurant manager and 2 waitresses. They're the only ones left now that all the customers and bussers have been cleared out. Deliberately, he stands so he can cast a shadow over what Kelso's doing. We've confirmed a time frame for the dump. Cutler talks loud over the wind and traffic noise. Trash pickup was last night after closing. Private company. Kelso looks up, frowns. The empty dumpster poses more questions than a full one. Cutler expects they will fight about this for days. Was the body meant to be found or not? And there is the not-so-small matter of the location. Hey, Bob, check out the towers. Can you see the guards from here? Kelso shelters his eyes with his hand. Yep. Dang, says Cutler. If we can almost see them, they can definitely see us. Guess where we're headed next. Kelso doesn't care to. He's poking through the gravel with a pen and putting a few pebbles into a plastic baggie. What do you got? Contamination. I don't see it. He raises the baggie and uses the pen as a pointer. There's soil on top of the gravel. Shouldn't be here. This is the only restaurant for miles, Bob. Last I checked, there's a lot of dirt in Ohio. Kelso is still thoughtfully looking at the baggie. The soil is discolored. See that little bit of blue tint in there? Cutler bends down to take a closer look. He sees a speck of unsettling, intense blue. Still, just a speck. What the hell is that? Poison ground. You saying you know what that is? Kelso rises. He's 1/2 inch taller than his partner, a fact no one else notices but Cutler. I've seen it before. I don't know the specific chemistry, but I remember it's got cyanide in it. Comes up through the ground at old gasworks sites, places like that. Could narrow things down. If the soil comes from our guy. Yeah. Neither of them has to say it's a long shot. The only thing going for those little specks of blue dirt is their proximity to the body, and the fact that they were found in a part of the lot that only workers and delivery trucks use. Cutler says, might as well see what the lab says. I guess it's more interesting than running down cigarette butts and tire tracks. Together, the investigators start another slow walk around the restaurant, taking in the highway, the hills, the prison. The L&K is the only business for miles, and it's trucker friendly. Getting a feel for the place is one of the first steps in getting a feel for the crime. For Cutler, the murder is the opposite of a locked door mystery. His instinct tells him this is one of those cases that will only be solved once they detect the gravitational pull of random objects. It will all come together, won't it? Kelso nods, drinking in the raw and vast Ohio vista. There's several attempts to connect the killing of Dalia Black to others, but her death is a universal puzzle piece that fits too many MOs. She was beaten to death in a manner that was either impassioned or machine-like, and her body was either hidden or displayed. The only thing the detectives could agree on is that there are at least 5 active killers using the I-75 corridor as a hunting ground for women like Dalia. Out there on the highway, independent souls go missing all the time. Even the contaminated soil isn't evidence. It's merely a clue, and clues are a pain in the ass. Cutler and Kelso will never solve the case. Dalia's presence on this planet is erased in short time, forgotten everywhere, except in the freshman girls' dorm of New Royal University, where she is the main character in a ghost story told to every entering class. Blue Billy is more broadly remembered, especially by two distinct populations, criminal investigators and children. The nickname floats into these cultures like pollen, and Blue Billy becomes the catch-all suspect for the impossible cases as well as a phantom in the darkest fantasies. It only takes a whisper to turn a safe place into an unsafe one. For example, 5 cousins sweated out on their bunks on the still air, late summer night, trying not to fidget because their heat-proof mattresses squeak and crinkle. Aunt Mitzi will hear them. There's an AC window unit where the grown-ups sleep, but it's never plugged in. Those things poison the air, and are we made of money? So, the children suffer and calm their little hearts after a day of fishing, swimming, and sunburns. It's the first night of summer vacation, the first night at the family camp. Nothing is boring yet. They giggle, make up stories about the China angels. There's a row of them in the front room, and each one is shiny, delicate, and unique. The grown-ups call them charming, and the cousins dislike them. The angels are fragile things in a wild place, so naturally, imaginations turn toward violence. Their aunt shushes the kids from the other room. Several moments of silence follow before one cousin whispers to the ceiling, "Blue Billy," as if saying hello to a monster at the windowsill who's about to come in. The older cousins gasp, the younger ones squeal. Their aunt hollers for them to cut that racket out. Too late. Happiness is tissue thin, and they all watched To Kill a Mockingbird when it was on TV last winter. For the little ones, the moment turns, no pulling back. By morning, the sun shimmers on the river look like clicking knives, and nothing will feel perfect ever again. So, Blue Billy is a term for a kind of Prussian blue, chemicals that come out of the ground, as mentioned by old gasworks, things like that. That's where the name of the type book comes from. And as it becomes explained later on, when this sort of terminology starts bouncing around, it becomes mistaken as the code name for the killer. So that's what he goes by going forward. What I read to you was a part that mostly took place in 1984. From this point, the book goes back to 1952 and then moves chronologically for about a third until it reaches 2017, which picks up where this book left off. The majority, at least 2/3 of the book are from 2017 till the advent of the pandemic. I finished this book in September 2020 and submitted to the publisher. I was sort of out of the cycle there because I took some time off after Crybaby Lane. So it's been a while, and it's been through the pipeline and that sort of thing. It's been a while. That's why it's there's such a big gap between the books. I want to talk a little bit about the 3 main characters before I read just a little bit more. Crocus is probably the most popular character from the series. She is a punk ex-con who is a graduate of the MFA in crime writing, and she was sort of a sidekick to the professor. In the second book, she is actually doing her own investigating, albeit rather clumsily. And in the third book, she is on the run from the villain of this book. She's on the run from the villain of this book, and she's one of the main characters here. And one of the things that I really loved doing about Blue Billy was to sort of bring a bunch of adult cousins together, right? So I mentioned in that little brief part that I just read about the cousins all spending time in this one place and it being sort of a magical place in the summer. There's a lot of material in Blue Billy which is about people when they were younger, and then we leap to their adult selves or the more mature selves. And so much of Blue Billy is about cousins getting together, sort of not exactly Scooby-Doo style, but it's cousins getting together and knowing each other and going through this process of trying to prove that Blue Billy is real, trying to save their own skin. And I love the idea of these people sort of knowing each other in ways that no other relationship can sort of duplicate, right? Because these are people who still sort of know each other as like just large children, in a sense, still have that sort of level of non-respect, right? But they actually do really know each other. They really know each other, how they're gonna talk, how they're gonna be. So it is a largely chronological book, just that one dip back into 1984 to sort of give a sort of sense of one of Bluebilly's earliest acts with Dalia Black. Tara is one of Crocus's cousins who was also an early surviving victim of Bluebilly. However, in her trauma, she implicated the wrong people, and they were set up for the attack. And it is not until she becomes an adult she realizes that they had nothing to do with what happened to her. So she has been struggling with mental health issues, but also with her desire to take control back of her life, and also to find Bluebilly and prove to the world that he's real. And Alma Bell is, and Tara is named after Tara Laskowski because she was working on her latest book, and I was working on mine, and I sort of just got it in my head. I wanted to win. We were talking about, I was going to get my manuscript done first, that kind of thing, which is not really a healthy way to write. But actually worked for me. So yeah, compete. Write fast. No, but we were talking about it. I said, look, I need you to read this book when I'm done, and I need you to do the blurb for it. And she said, yeah, okay, all right. So I thought I would just like really set the hook by naming the character after her, which is one of my habits. I'll put Colleen in the next one. How's that?
Isn't it hard?
Yeah, it is. It is kind of, yeah, it really is. An extra horror, you're right. Good work, that. So I mean, Tara's Tara's a great character. I think most of the people who have read this book have come away really liking her a lot. And I see her as a kind of person who manages to create a kind of functionality, despite having a lot of limitations emotionally and trauma-wise, that sort of thing. And then finally, Alma Bell is a character who's appeared in all the books. She is also a professor at Memorial University, and she has been more of a kind of informational character in a sense, a kind of steadying presence. No, this is good, but now she gets to step up and be part of the drama. She has her own connection to Bluebilly as well, because her main piece of writing that she has done her scholarship on is to try to prove that he's real as well, because of previous attack on her college friend in the same sort of area. So the next part that I'm going to read is about that section. It's about Alma, and let's see how far we get here. And we've been on a Sparks music kick, the Mail brothers, Russell and Ron Mail. So this one is named after one of their songs, number one song in heaven, No One in Heaven, as actually says. All right. This takes place in 1992. Alma dances disco with a 30-year-old who pretends to be 20. He has a fake tan, a puka shell necklace, and a heavy predator vibe, and wears like just another accessory. Melinda doesn't dance, so she wanders off the parking lot with a guy she doesn't know, and when she comes back, she smells like weed. She says she feels happy, she feels loved. The night glitters. The snow, the lights, the peace of nothing to do between Christmas and New Year's. College bars serve half-price drinks until Alma and Melinda are staggering in their summer shoes. Candies with soft leather straps and wooden soles, with the only heels they have at their parents' houses. Candies are murder on black ice. They pledged not to go home until the DJ played a cool song, and they ended up waiting a long time, slogging through She Drives Me Crazy, Holiday, Baby Got Back, and the only Pretender song they both hate. The usual MTV playlist sometimes feels like drowning, but then it happens. No One in Heaven, a track that's more than a decade old. Melinda and Alma can't believe their ears. This is not an Ohio song, Melinda says. Dreamy, she and Alma wait at the door for the cut to fade out, as if they're watching a train leave with everyone they love inside. They talk about the song on the drive home. They try to sing it too. Stop here, stop here. Alma wants to get out at the intersection of Capricorn Lane and Capella Court. The streets in her neighborhood are all named after stars and starry things. Melinda pulls over, grazing a pylon of plowed snow. You sure? I can make it, I'm okay. Just don't want to wake up the folks. There's no reason to argue. Alma's gonna be just fine. The snow is blue, hard and glassy, reflecting Christmas lights from the houses. It doesn't feel cold, doesn't feel warm. There's no temperature at all, only colors and what's supposed to be the dead of night. Melinda teased Alma that she would never let you go out again. That was about the guy Alma danced with. He reeked of Papa Rabanne. Either his wife and kids gave him a bottle for Christmas, or he was just a loser who found a sample in a magazine. Alma's neighborhood is a suburban fairyland of salty streets and twinkling decorations, but the Belle's sprawling split level is an embarrassment. It has been professionally trimmed with red, white, and blue lights. Only Alma's father would turn a magical holiday into a George Bush tribute. And there's a figure on the roof, but it isn't Santa. It's her little brother Dick, wrapped in a giant parka over his pajamas, holding a big steaming mug in his hands. A dormer window can be a boy's best friend. He's 10, a grim 10, a stubborn, frowny 10. He pretends not to notice Alma coming up the walk. She pauses halfway and looks up at him. The night's so quiet she can hear his slurps. Is that coffee, Dick? You're not supposed to drink coffee. He shrugs. By not being around anymore, Alma's rescinded her authority. You drink liquor too? No. You don't sound so sure. Is beer liquor? Ah, Jesus, Dad. The half-hearted scold is all she has. There's no point in trying to be a big sister now, especially not in her condition. Alma goes inside and quietly stumbles up to her room where she falls asleep on top of the comforter, fully clothed. She wakes to the scent of her brother's breath, coffee and Jolly Ranchers. He leans over, staring down as if he's trying to see the bottom of a dark barrel. Something's going on out there. Dick, go away. Her back hurts from sleeping at a strange angle and her clothes are screwed up all around her. It's still dark out. No, please, you have to see. A please out of Dick is rare. Alma's still a bit drunk, and by morning she'll feel terrible, but at the moment she's suspended in a gentle sickness that is almost promising. She follows her brother to his poster-covered room. The window is wide open for easy access to the roof. The carpet is damp from snow crystals blown into dye. Dick scrambles out of the window, standing in a low-pitched gable, in his pajamas and parka like a captain on a ship's deck. Alma still doesn't feel the cold as she follows him, but the air is bracing, sobering. There. He points over the rooftops. The neighborhood is divided into its distinct architectural entities, belligerent but interlocking. Then she sees it, a few streets over, a string of multicolored lights on an otherwise black roof, whipping back and forth as if caught in a gale. What the hell is that? I think someone's trying to signal us. The lights flash back and forth. It's a bird, Dad. It's caught in the strings. A bird. Come on, what kind of bird? I don't know, a duck? Yeah, night ducks. And then suddenly the string of lights straightens and stills before they flicker out. Well, it's free now, Dad. Let's go back to bed. Melinda's family lives one subdivision over from Alma's in a townhome community. The Rumbolds are not nearly as affluent as the Bells, but the families have been friends since the girls were small. They all dined together that Christmas Eve. After dropping Alma off, Melinda pulls up to her folks' unit. But there's no need for her to be stealthy or quiet. The house is empty. She wiggles the key in the lock, and once inside, she kicks off her shoes even before she switches on the hallway light. Her parents are in Hawaii. Back in her high school days, she would have had a party, but now she's grateful for the solitude. Dorm life is exhausting. Still, she and Alma are the lucky ones, going to school in Chicago while the rest of their friends stayed back. Some are at the community college, others are at NRU. Melinda grabs a course in the refrigerator. Her mother stacked the beers in the crisper to make room for the holiday leftovers that will sustain Melinda through the week. A giant ham covered in wrapped pink foil holds a position of honor on the first shelf. Second shelf, the dark meat from the turkey in a ceramic casserole dish next to a couple of murky plastic containers of stuffing and green beans. Something about the giant rude drumstick reminds Melinda of the creep Alma danced with. Maybe it's the skin. She drinks the beer in a few goes, standing in front of the open refrigerator. Then she collects another that she intends to drink more slowly. When your Alma bells ring, then you have to stay sober, or sober enough relative to Alma. Christ, that guy. Melinda is majoring in special education, and she'd taken her required literature class 2 semesters ago. But she remembers one story very clearly. It's about a girl who gets lured away by a sleazebag who may or may not be the devil. That's what Melinda thought of as soon as that blow-dried douche pulled Alma onto the dance floor. If the Chess King ensemble wasn't a giveaway, the white creases in his tan neck should have been. Alma was too blasted to notice, or maybe she noticed and just didn't care. It was always a little lonely coming back home to Montgall. The whole sad status thing and how it sort of flipped after high school is something that neither Melinda nor Alma has the stomach for. Hence their trip to the Virgo, possibly the least hip club in town, with its purple and pink lights, double entendre named drink specials, and a DJ who never heard a top 40 hit he didn't adore. Lots of minuses. On the plus side, 50-cent draft for the ladies. Of course, Melinda has no room to judge. Sometime during the night's revelry, she ended up in a yellow Camaro blowing a guy for weed. Thing is, she has plenty of cash. She just wanted to blow the guy. He was nice and all and claimed he was gay-ish. Out loud, Melinda says in her empty, dark kitchen, "I need more gay friends." She said that exact same thing before in a crowd of people at the bar. It was early in the night when everyone was still clever. They all laughed and she felt terrific, terrific enough to blow a guy. She moves through the dark house with its blue holiday shadows, feeling at peace until she sees the red blinking light on the phone cable. The answering machine was Daddy's big family Christmas present only a few years ago, and now everyone has them. Melinda hits play. Tim's voice. "Mom wanted me to check on you. This is me checking on you." End of message. Her brother lives in Scranton with his wife Karen and their twin toddlers, Zachary and Simon. Tim threw a fit when the parentals announced their holiday trip. The dinner on Christmas Eve just wasn't the same, according to him. What a whiner. Beer in hand, Melinda heads on up to bed. Halfway on the stairs, she pauses, trying to remember if she locked the door. She did. Turns out, it doesn't matter. Melinda wakes suddenly, and according to the glowing numbers on the clock, she's only been out for a couple of hours. It's still dark, and her heart pounds as if she's had a nightmare, but she doesn't remember the dream. She lays still, trying to fall back asleep. It doesn't work. She gets up to brush her teeth again, as if she can still taste the yellow Camaro guy. She's wearing a Christmas present from Alma, a huge white t-shirt that says "Choose Life" as a nightie. It's a gag gift. Melinda gave Alma a hardback copy of the Rules of Attraction, also a gag gift, but a bit more subtle. It was a hoot exchanging these presents in front of their families, who were bewildered when the girls fell out laughing, almost in tears. Later, Melinda tried to explain it to her mother, Dina, while they wrapped up the leftovers, and her father hauled the suitcases out to the car. They would fly out Christmas morning. It's like, these are the kinds of things the cool kids from the high school really liked. You know, posers and clubbers. Dina was listening. Then she said one of those mom things that was accidentally on target. "Aren't you and Alma clubbers?" "Yeah, but we weren't back then." The difference is too painful to describe. Now Melinda's bare feet make contact with the carpet in the bedroom, and she listens to the whoosh of the heat pump kick on. She misses their old crappy house and the floor-level vents she would sit against in winter, roasting her back. Despite its name, the heat pump guarantees that she'll always be cold. It cycles off almost as soon as it comes on, and the house becomes utterly silent again. Just before Melinda flicks on the bathroom light, she hears a dull mechanical thunk from downstairs. Then another sound, like a word, but maybe not. More of a shadow of a word. Melinda realizes what woke her in the first place. Heavy, steady steps. Someone climbs the carpeted stairs. Someone who is not in a hurry. Someone who is not afraid of being discovered. I'm going to pop over, because I'm sure you sort of understand what's going on here. Unfortunately, Melinda is killed, and Alma has been brought in to talk about her last moment. Brought in for questioning. She actually meets Detective Cutler. Brought in for questioning, and this takes place after she's been in the police station, now back home. Alma sleeps for 10 hours and wakes well before dawn. It was only 48 hours earlier that Deck had shaken her awake, alerting her to the commotion in the night that she dismissed as nothing. Nothing. She feels like she's in hell. And it's Deck again, waking her up, though not on purpose. This time he's somewhere near, making a hideous, sickening noise. Alma pads into the hallway. His bedroom door is ajar. "You okay?" The disgusting noise stops. She nudges the door, opening it slowly, giving him fair warning. He may only be 10, but he has a private life. He's standing in the low glow of a bedside lamp, and behind him, the manic Ren and Stimpy poster looks even more threatening than the lurid yellow and red poster for Day of the Dead he has over his bed. The only Ray gets away with watching Ren and Stimpy's because it's on Nicktoons and Mom and Dad are oblivious. Alma's quite sure that Deck has never seen Day of the Dead. He's hunched over and staring into a medical glove. It's white latex. What the heck are you doing? He makes no effort to hide it. I swiped it from Dr. Truax, the family dentist. So he ticked me off. Dad, I'm tired. No, really, Al. That dick is wearing gloves now, like we all have AIDS or something. That's what you're mad about? Basic hygiene? Yeah, aren't you? Alma feels sorry for him. Deck doesn't even know what he's picking up on. Harv Truax went to school with their mother, who has a lot of non-professional history with the guy. Hey, Deck, you know Mom's joke, right? What joke? What do they call the guy who's last in his class at medical school? Deck looks bad, miserable, confused, defeated. Still, he plays along. What? Doctor! Ba-doom-ba. And as soon as she says it, she almost feels like crying and sinking to the floor. Deck doesn't laugh. It's possible he hasn't laughed since first grade. Look, do you want to find Melinda's killer? Of course I do. A cold fist on Alma's heart, moving slowly, inevitably. He holds the glove out to her, then spit in the glove. You're insane. This is punctuated by a particularly loud, poorly muffled snore from their father in the master bedroom at the other end of the hall. Deck's turn. It's Deck's turn for a joke. The famous Hanky Bell, ladies and gentlemen. Deck, please. Spit. Why? Shh. You might wake up the drunkos. He means their parents, who weren't likely to wait for a tornado. The liturgy of the cocktail hour was a 4-hour mass in the Bell household. Why, Deck? DNA. Just spit in the glove. If I spit, will you clue me in? Only when you spit. Alma gives in. She does her best with closed eyes. So gross. You're a terrible spitter. Thank you. Now tell me what you're up to. Deck peers into the glove. That's enough, I guess. Alma gags a little and ignores her. He says, here's the deal. The guy who found the trunk in the basement was my best friend's cousin. He saw it all. She was tied, she was beaten, maybe for hours. Stop. He stares down. Beaten for hours, Al, and probably you know what it. Alma doesn't know when she bent over, but for some reason she's looking at the floor, hands propped against her thighs. Deck continues. You know what it leaves DNA. That's how they're going to catch these creeps now, with science. She straightens up and breathes deep, persistently impulses to argue that if Melinda were there, she'd call Deck a genius. That's how they were together. Detective Cutler is in charge of the case. He doesn't seem very interested in science. He's a usual suspects kind of guy. Exactly, he wiggles the glove. Montbell's finest need a push. What a weird little person her brother is. He reads too many magazines, watches too much television, believes the world still works. Alma does too. She's only 20 after all. You're a genius, she says, wishing that the holographic spirit of Melinda would appear to give her a thumbs up. That I am. I need a ride, though. Just before dawn, Alma collects the keys to the dad's Buick. Deck sits on the passenger side, looking like a pint-sized villain. Lights off, they cruise the 2 blocks to Melinda's neighborhood. When they stop in front of her unit, Deck rolls down the window and hurls the glove. He's not athletic, but it flies up and over the yellow tape and lands next to the heat pump. The foolishness of heat pumps. That was a famous cocktail argument. Another Christmas present from the recent past. Hanky Bell, gin slurring to Felix rumbled, and rumbled roaring back like 2 bull seal elephants. And now the heat pump has become a great place to plant evidence. Go, 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 Deck urges. They're only a half a block away when Alma notices the dark sedan in the rear view. Its lights are off, just like theirs. It creeps behind them, alternating between blur and shimmer, blur and shimmer. Then it vanishes down a side street. Perhaps it was a cop. Perhaps it was him. Alma says nothing to Deck about it. Deck doesn't notice his sister's shaking hands as she opens the front door of the red, white, and blue-lit split level. Deck's planning the next steps. We can check on it tomorrow. No need, Alma says. She knows the glove is already gone. What she doesn't know is that there are 30 years of doubt and nightmares ahead. Okay, so do we have any questions? A couple more things I can talk about. Do we have any questions?
And Sam?
Do
questions online or comments?
Don't believe so.
Okay.
We have Greg saying that was a great read, and Art saying he was excited about the Tara shout out.
Okay, good. Well, one of among the questions I usually get, and I'll wrap this up really quickly here, is that people who've read this book have been asking me about genre jumping, because my first two books were more in the realm, like my first book was more of a urban fantasy, and the second book was more of a straight up sort of hunting after a so-called cursed emerald and all the bad things that happen to greedy people, and then I moved into mysteries or thrillers. To me, these all feel the same, right? And I feel like with every book that I do, I try to come up with a new problem to solve, like a new technical problem, and sort of like, what they say about witches, when they throw seeds down on the ground, you have to start and pick them all up, I come up with a new technical problem to solve, and it wasn't good enough that I would just write a mystery novel. I just immediately conceived of, like, well, I'm going to write 3 of them, right? And so that's part of what I like doing there. When my books come together, it's almost always several different ideas that I realize go together. So in Blue Billy, as I mentioned, this sort of past obsession with serial killers, but there was also a kind of story I had been working on about a guy in a refrigerator in a swamp, and a few other elements like that I said, oh wait, these could all be part of the same book. And so it's sort of taking these random story ideas and putting them together, in not forcing them together, they actually go together because they're all in my head, obviously, but recognizing that they go together in a way.
So does that mean that you're not going to be writing any more about the criminal writing program in the university?
That's not my next project. My next project, which I'm almost finished with, is a draft of a horror dystopia, which is called, right now the working title is The Obituary Project. And the log line sounds pretty shaky right now, but I'm anywhere from 5 to 20 pages of being done with the draft, but it's about a young boy who's coming of age during a time when people are being visited by ghosts of their loved ones, and after these visitations, people stop dying. All right. So it's about what as he comes of age in this era where people don't have death as a limitation, or appear not to have death as a limitation, how that changes things, and then of course why that happened. So I know that's weird.
Okay.
So find a place to put a Colleen in it, okay? But yeah, I don't think about it as genre jumping. I think about it all as trying to talk about the things I'm obsessed with in it as an entertaining manner as possible. And my genre of choice to read is always mystery and thriller, and it's usually pretty dark. So every book that comes up, I try to come up, as I say, with a new challenge.
So you mentioned fast fiction. What is
Flash fiction?
flash fiction? What is that?
Typically, it is fiction that's under 1,000 words. The limits go back and forth, and it sort of refocuses your sense of what the story is. So I think the best flash fiction tends to refocus importance on an image, or doesn't always have to tell a complete story. I think my first encounter with very short fiction would have been 2-minute mysteries, right? Which actually did try to tell an entire story within a very, very short space of time. When you refocus attention, take focus away from, say, resolving the because of this and that of the story, when you refocus on an image or perhaps on another point of view, then you're able to reinvigorate maybe certain kinds of plots certain kinds of story ideas that might otherwise be stale, for example. So flash fiction, when it came out and became popular in online forums like Smoke Long Quarterly and Wigleaf, those are the two biggies in my access. Then sort of, I think a lot of people would look at those pieces and say, hey, this actually borders on prose poetry to a certain degree, but it has more of a focus on the narrative component of it. I know that's not a really good answer necessarily. The least informative thing you can say about it, though, is that it's short, right? So it tries to say, oh no, there's story over here, even though you think that there's a story right down the middle. There's actually a story everywhere, right? And so you can think of it as sort of like a lyric narrative. That's not all flash fiction, but when I started doing that stuff, we had Scott Garson was in our classes as well, and he is the editor-in-chief of Wiggly's magazine, and he was doing these things on the side, and he also sort of helps to institutionalize. I mean, a lot of these new forms need help in becoming institutionalized, but prizes or recognition and things like that. So in addition to these really great journals, and online journals especially, he also has like the Wiggly Top 50 every year, which is great because it's a collaborative effort to choose what is the best in online flash fiction. But it also gives you a list every year, a really great anthology every year of not just 50 flash fictions that are good, but 250 because they published a long list as well, right? So I would definitely, if somebody was curious about flash fiction, I would say go to both of those places, Smoke Long Quarterly and Wiggly.
Yeah, Smoke Long I'd heard of, I hadn't heard of the other.
Right. And I just really sort of hit it lucky at that point and would have like quite a lot of publications in a given year and a lot of attention from it. But that's the perfect storm of writing in a new form and also writing in a new medium, basically. All right. Well, I'm tired of reading now. Thank you.
You can tell you're a teacher or a professor because you're wonderful at projecting.
Oh, you mean I yell? Yeah.
No.
Oh, and thank you guys, everybody who pre-ordered and got it. I have hand cramps from signing books. The first time in like 2 years, basically. And continue to order your physical copies from One More Page because whether it's my book, whether it's any book, they have everything here. They also have wine and chocolate.
And we'll have some of your signed books here available for order online.
Yep.
And we actually did just get a question as well,
Oh,
if you wanted to take
Sure.
it. From Art, it is, how does your teaching of creative writing impact or influence your own writing?
Oh, it really does affect my writing a great deal. And I think, thank you, Art. And I think it's twofold. Hanging around with people who are also teachers of writing, right? That wouldn't happen to me if I were not teaching, right? So hanging around with people who read and write all the time, who are drunk on this stuff, right? Hanging around with Art is really important. Art, I would say, is like the first person who said to me, yeah, that's a mystery story, Laura. Because I had written this like 56-page thing, which was the heart and soul of Beanboom. It was called The Murder Dog. And I said, hey, do you want to read this? And I'm thinking, wow, this is really an imposition. And he said, yeah, sure. And he read it, gave me some pointers. And then I asked him the last question. I said, but is it a mystery? And he said, yeah, sure it is. Like shruggy, shruggy permission to go forth and write this stuff. But so there's that part of it. But also just kids coming into the classroom, and I'm sorry to say kids, I apologize for that. Students coming into the classroom are coming in with so many fiery, fantastic ideas and so much ambition. And when you're around those people, you want to keep up, it's friendly competition, it's still competition. You never. So yeah, we're really, really lucky to be in an environment where we talk to very intelligent, very creative people every single day.
I think that's a great thing to end on. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching.